Hey, you're most welcome to my channel. So today we shall be seeing top 10 tricks for Pythonistas. Yes, and if you're here for the first time, you are most welcome. My name is Untitled, aka AfroBoyTex, and I'm glad that you chose this particular channel or this particular video for this content. So I'm in my folder on desktop, so I'm going to go where I usually do my Python stuff for YouTube, and I'm going to do a CMD. Then I'm going to create a new file. Let's create a new file. Let me first change the color. Let me open this in VS Code. So today what you're going to do, basically we're going to look at the first 5 of the top 10 tricks that we shall be exploring in this mini series. So I'm going to create a new file. I will call it top. I'll call it top, or I'll just say maybe tricks. Let me just call it Py. I'm going to call it Pytricks.py. You can name it anything you want. So since I've just opened my VS Code, it's just running instance for the first time. Just going to take a couple of seconds and we are good to go. So you and I certainly confirm and agree that Python code is one of the shortest and best languages out there, and it actually has an easy to learn syntax with a wide range of use cases. So but you know that you can actually use some of the tricks and tips to achieve some of the things with ease. So it's gonna be a beginner friendly introduction of these things. If you've not used them before, feel free, and you with practice you will actually get to grasp them. So I'm going to start with trick number 1. Let me first close this. So I'm going to start with trick number 1, and the trick we shall start with is called the Walrus Operator. So the Walrus Operator is basically a new operator that actually was added in Python 3.8, and we all know that every version of Python comes with new features that are actually added to the language, with new improvements, with some particular specifications that actually we can get to use. So 3.8, if you check your Python version, I'm currently I think at 3.10. Yes, 3.8 came with this feature, and let's see how we can actually use it to fulfill or make our code even shorter and easier. So if you don't know, the Walrus Operator is basically this. Let me just put it here. It's basically this with equal sign. So it's basically kind of like an assignment operator, or an assignment expression. So it has this colon and then the equal the assignment operator. So basically it's kind of like an expression. So if consider this code, I'm going to create a new variable. It just allows us to, what it does, it actually allows us to assign variables in the middle of code, of logic, or of expressions. For example, let me create a new variable and we see what I'm talking about. I'm going to call it my blog, and this blog of mine, for example, I have a blog called blog.octachat.com. So if I wanted to print out, find out if this length, for example, let me just do some logic, and they say, for example, if the length of this blog, that string that we just written, is above 10, we print out maybe true. So you could just say, we could create a new variable and we call it maybe blog. You can call it blog length. Then we say it actual length of my blog. So if you say if blog length is greater than 10, let's just print out just a second, let's print out we're going to print out true. We're going to print out true. So if you run this code, let's run this code at terminal. So if I just say tricks or pi, so it's basically printing out true. So if you are to utilize this Walrus operator, it would help us actually write this block length in the middle of this code. So the above code can be changed something like this. We could say if block length, now we call our Walrus operator, which is this equal signs, and we want to say its actual length of block, that this block length is equating to, and it is greater than 10. So we print true. So if we actually comment this out, let's just comment this out and we try running this. We see the same thing actually. So you can see the Walrus operator helps us eliminate this code here, as you can see. So you're able to create variables or assign variables in the middle of expressions, in the middle of code, in the middle of logic. You can assign variables. So basically what you're trying to do here is say this block length that we just created, which is actually the length of our block, that the variable that we created up here, which is equal to the length of the block, which is the variable created up here. If it is greater than 10, then print out true. So you see that we can actually eliminate all this code, the 3 lines, just condenses them into 2 lines. That's it for the Walrus operator. So let's head over to something else. Let's go to something called number 2 is going to be let me introduce you the dir directory method or function. So this method, basically what it does, it's an inbuilt function in Python which returns a list of attributes and methods that are actually available for that particular program or particular module or whatever you're trying to do. So for example, if we said import, maybe let's say import pip. So if you prefer importing pip, then we want to see the available methods for pip. We could just say print pip, we could say print dir, then pip. So if we run this code, let me just comment this out. Let me just let me just leave it. If we run this code, you see it brings us a list of the methods that are actually available in that pip list. So for example, if we came in the command line and we just said Python, it's the same thing, and we say import pip, then we did dir pip, basically tells us the same things. So let's just zip this shell. So if we actually also if we use, so we could just say pip list. We all know pip list is just returning stuff that is actually the packages that you're actually having, that you've installed. So let's look at let's look at trick number 3. Trick number 3 is going to be the you can say the star operator or the asterisk operator, whatever you want to call it, but basically it is this that we're talking about, operator. So we're going to see how we can actually leverage or use this. So first and foremost, we're going to use this to unpack. You can use this to unpack values of an iterable. For example, let's consider a list variable of numbers. I'm going to create numbers here. So let me assume this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you want to unpack this, simply just say the star, then num. So if you print this out, you're just basically unpacking these variables. So if we went to our command line and we ran our file again, it will just bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you can see. Let's look at how we can actually also use this to merge two lists. For example, if I have another list which I'm going to call num2, and it's also maybe going to have let it start from 7, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe stops at 10. Let's make this stop at 5. So if we want to merge this list, you could just do print star num1 and then asterisk num2. So if we comment this out, let me go on commenting these other print statements that we actually had created. I can comment this out, but this will complain, so I could just add a pass here. A pass just helps us do nothing. Like for now, just let's not do anything, let's not perform anything. So if we print, if we go back to Pytrick, so basically see, it just adds all this, it unpacks and then merges them. So if we also we could actually have used a bunch of for loops to achieve the same thing. To use a for loop, for example, if we use the for loops, we could just say for n, maybe in we could just say for n in num, for example, let's say for n in num2, let's say num2, the one that we've just created. For any number in num2, we are going to append, let's create a new variable here, I'll call it a new list. It's going to be an empty list. That's what I shall be appending. So you can say new dot append that n. So basically now we are trying to append the values in num2. So we could do the same thing for num1 or this num variable that we created. So we could just copy this. Basically it's the same thing. You just say for n in num and then new dot append n, then for n in num2 new dot append n. So if we printed out a new, it should be able to give us the same stuff that we have here. So let's just comment this out, then we run our code again. Yes, it does the same thing, just merges these lists together. So that means if we actually put here something like this, let's see if this works where I want it, and we run this. Yes, perfect, does the same thing. So if we actually put here the list, we make this a list, but we unpack and then we just append them to num2. This entire line, this one line of code, it can be done with a bunch of for loops with all this code. So you see how much you eliminate all this code into just one line of code. So let me just comment this out for now as we head over to see another way how you can use this asterisk. So we have something called adds and quags in Python. They also use this asterisk symbol. So it's a special syntax and function definitions that is actually used to define to pass a variable, in other words, number of arguments to a function. So it is used to pass a non-keyworded variable. So what I'm talking about is actually this ads. I don't know if you've come across it, you've used it before. So what it does basically, if you're creating a function, for example, I'm going to create a function and I will call it I'll call it maybe names, and then I put in our ads. I'll just say ads. So it's non-keyworded arguments, that's what we are trying to do here. Then we shall maybe return, let's just do simple, maybe just return these ads. Let's just return these ads. So if I'm actually now instead of running this this code, I could just say for example, I could put in anything that I want here. I could put in all the names that I need. For example, I could put in Ronnie, and I could put in Afro Boy. I could also put in something like YouTuber. I could pass in whatever I need to pass in here. That's what I'm trying to say. You're not limited to how many arguments actually that you can pass. All this will work fine. So let's try running this code and we see. Perfect. We have Ronnie, Afroboy, YouTuber. You can pass in whatever you want to pass in with just this symbol here placed before the ads keyword. And I believe this is just a custom. We could use anything here. Let's just say let's use something else. We could just say maybe return names. Let's see. Okay, let's call it something else. Let's call it name tuples or name tuples, because this what it does, it returns name tuples. It returns a tuple type. So we could say name tuples. So and we see if it's actually still doing the same thing. Perfect. So you're not limited to what you can use, so long as you put this asterisk symbol. You could define this whatever you want. You could use ads by conversion, but you could also try to use some other variable that you want to use. So let's comment this out. So what next? We actually are going to look, maybe before we look at it, just ads is just a tuple, because it receives a tuple containing a position arguments beyond the formal parameter list. So we are going to look at something else also called quags, but quags is going to actually have two asterisks, and we shall see how we also to use this. So basically this is actually now keyworded arguments. So I mean by keyworded variable length arguments, I mean, for example, if we define the same function, okay, since it's the same, let me just define it with just an underscore to be different. So if we define the same function and then we attached our quads, but this time round you append 2 at the beginning, then we return quads. So if we actually now printed this names, if we printed these names, by this time round we're going to print them out with keywords. So for example, we could pass in whatever keywords you want. So I can just say maybe my first name is going to be maybe Ronnie. Then maybe my last name is going to be maybe Highway. Then I could just also put in something called blog, which I could say it's actually and I could just say it is maybe Octochat. I could just say Octochat. I could just call it Octochat as the domain name. So if we run this, we should be good. Let's try running this again. Perfect. So this now returns kind of like a dictionary format. because the keyword did arguments. So you can see now it's first Ronnie, last name Tyro blog Octochat. So that's it for, I think, quags and ags. But we could also utilize the same, we could utilize this to actually we could use this in conjunction with the asterisk to achieve a lot of things. But for today, you can practice and get to learn more about this. So let's head over to something else, to number. Is this trick number 3? Because this is trick number 1, this is trick number 2, it's trick number 4. So this entails the ags and quags, the asterisk operator. So let's look at trick number 4. So trick number 4 is going to be the breakpoint. It's going to be the breakpoint method. So the breakpoint method is basically a built-in function tool that allows us to set points in the code at which the debugger is called. So by default, this function results in an instantiation of Python's native debugger class. So let's start. For example, if you have a variable, let's create a variable, call it x, and this x, for example, it's an integer, and maybe we have y, and y, maybe it's a string and it's a high. Then we have a z variable. We could also call it something else. We could maybe say world. So what you're going to do, you're going to print, for example, let's try printing. It's kind of like for debugging. So let's print y, but in the middle there, let's call a breakpoint method. Then after there, now we can actually print z. So let's try running this, for example, and we see how we can use it, because this actually was introduced by Python 3.7. Yes, this was actually introduced by Python 3.7 that allows us to write loosely coupled debugging code. So the above code we just created, this code, what it does basically, it sets a session of PDB, the Python debugger, a module to set trace method, and it's actually a pretty easy way of calling the PDB debugger. So if you run this code, for example, let me just comment out. Yes, I already commented out. So let's run this. Let me first clear here. So if you run this code, you see it actually says hi. Then after saying hi, it waits upon the module. You see what it's actually trying to do. It's saying module, and then it's actually trying to print z. So it's a PDB, the module that we're actually trying to be called. So if we did, if we pressed C, it would actually continue, and the next execution would follow. So if you pressed C, you could say that now the world comes upon, which is actually the z or the z, a variable. So that's it basically for the breakpoint today. It's basically for those ones who are good at debugging and want to see particular breakpoints in their code as their program executes. So we're going to lastly today look at the zip function. Let me just clear the screen. So if you look at number 5 is going to be the zip. I know you could have used it before. The zip function or method is basically defined as it's basically defined as zip, then iterable. So it also utilizes the asterisk kind of behind the scenes. So that's how it is actually defined in real instance, and the function takes in iterables as arguments and returns an iterator. So this iterator basically generates a series of tuples or tuples containing elements from each iterable. You can use the zip function to combine several lists of the same length. For example, let's try something here. Let's create a variable. We call it string. Let's create a string numbered string for the numbers. For example, it's going to be a list. let's say 1. I think string is not is a pretty bad word. We'll say maybe words. Let's say words. Let's use 2. Then sorry, let's say maybe 3. Then we could call another now. We could call it figs maybe. Figs is going to be 1, 2, 3. So what the zip, we're going to use zip to map this. Is a map function that we could use. So if we did use the for loop for maybe maybe for number, we could use anything. Okay, let's use for number in words, but this time around we're going to use a zip function. So we say we zip these two. So we say words. Let's remove this because they are by default. Words and figs. So basically here we're just getting those two and we put them together. So we say we shall be printing out, for example, let's say words. Okay, let's say figs. Let's say figs equals to words. So basically what we're trying to do is 1 equals to 1, 2 equals to 2, 3 equals to 3. So this is going to be a string actually. Then you can just put your commas. Yes, basically that's it. If we printed out this, you can actually see the output in here. Let's say pi, then we call our Pytrix. P is not iterable as an internal, so there's something about an issue. Let's see what it's saying. P is not recognized as internal or external command. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be pi. Pytrix. We still have this function here happening, so let's just comment this out and first stop this. So if you see actually this is actually what is happening, and we could see it's not bringing actually what we want, kind of, and we need to, there's something that we're doing wrong, and I think let's first go back to our code. Yes, so zip we're not using actually what we're not using I for our I, but also if we're iterating into a zip we need to create two variables. So we could say maybe for fig, okay, for word, then comma fig, for word fig, for words, comma, then fig in zip. We want this fig equals to this word. So now we are trying to use our variables now that we actually created, because this was just doing nothing. So let's run the code again. Yes, perfect. So this is 1, 2, 3. So what we've just done is we're iterating through the words, then also iterating through the figs, which is actually a zipped list. So it's kind of like an iterator. So now we print out the fig, and then we also print out the word. We could also utilize, let me just comment this out. Let me just add a pass keyword here so that we avoid Python crying. So we could also actually use this operator to achieve the same thing. We could also actually use the asterisk operator to achieve the same thing above. So what we can do, for example, I'm going to create let me create a Python comprehension here. I'm going to call it math. It's going to be a list of lists, which is going to contain 2 lists. So I'm going to say okay, let me create the same. Let me just create the same. Let me create the same mapping. For example, I could say mapper. Let me call it a mapper. Then I create a list, and inside this I'm going to have 2 lists. As I said, it's going to be a list of lists, and you see how we can actually utilize the asterisk keyword to achieve the same thing. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm just going to put this exact information that we have in here, and you see how we can also achieve this. So I'm going to use now a Python comprehension to achieve just as like I said. So I could just say print, and I will say we want n to print n to come out with n for n in mapper. But this time round, since we're using the zip function, we zip it. After zipping it, we make sure we use the asterisk keyword so that we can iterate through. So this is going to create an iterable, a generator kind of. So what we can actually do, since it's a comprehension, we could create a list comprehension instead. So you just add this. Just a second. Add this, and put this actually inside here, and we put this outside here. Yes, so this is a list comprehension that we are utilizing here, so that we actually achieve almost the same thing, mapping this and to this, mapping this and to this. So let's see what actually this creates. Yes, perfect. So it's creating 1, it goes to 1, 2, it goes to 2, 3, it goes to 3. So basically what we've done here, we've mapped this and to this, and we've mapped this and to this. So you could do it either way. We begin with these ones as first 1, 2, the keyword, the words and the figures. So basically here we are utilizing the zip function and the asterisk, which is number 4, a trick that we've seen. So we're iterating the variables, we're unpacking everything that's in here, and then we're actually zipping them together as we go through this data. So that's it for today, and in the next video we're going to look at the next 5 tricks that I will be looking at. And please continue to subscribe to my channel. I want to grow, and if you really like this content, you can also hit that like button. Thank you. Have a great one.